All right, thank you guys for joining us. My name is Desiree Blanchard, and I'm the Communications and Community Engagement Manager for the Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments. And today we'll be talking about the updates we make to our Title VI non-discrimination plan for the Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments and the Valley Transit District. So to begin, let's get to know some of the organizations that are involved in Title VI compliance. So we start off with the Federal Transit Administration, also known as FTA. So FTA is an agency within the U.S. Department of Transportation that provides financial and technical assistance to local public transportation systems. Then we have NVCOG, or the Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments. We're the regional planning organization for the 19 municipalities in West Central Connecticut. We coordinate planning activities and provide technical support and assistance to the region's policy and decision-making board members, who are the local CEOs. We also function as a metropolitan planning organization for 15 of those 19 communities. Then we have Valley Transit District, who is a public transportation system for Southern Naugatuck Valley. So they include the 4 communities of Ansonia, Derby, Seymour, and Shelton. So how are they connected, or are we connected? NVCOG and VTD maintain a memorandum of understanding that says we'll cooperatively provide planning and transit services for those 4 aforementioned communities. And FTA provides financial assistance to us. And since they do so, we report back to them on Title VI. So we're talking about Title VI. What is Title VI? So Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, paraphrasing, says that no person in the United States shall be discriminated against under any federally funded program or activity on the basis of race, color, or national origin. As recipients of federal assistance from FTA and FHWA, NVCOG and Valley Transit District must maintain a Title VI program to show our compliance and demonstrate how we comply with transit-related activities of Title VI as set forth by US DOT regulations. So FTA requires that we update this program every 3 years to renew components of the plan, including our demographic profile, our public participation plan, and our language assistance plan. So I'll go further into those later in the presentation. This Title VI update is to the 2016 program that was done by VCOG at the time and Valley Transit District and endorsed by our boards. And the update again focuses on both the NVCOG 19 community region and the VTD service area. That's those 4 communities. So we start off with our demographic profile and the updates that were made to it. So it includes maps and charts pertaining to the service areas that were mentioned. For our demographic profile, we use American Community Survey 2016 to 2020 5-year estimate data that was available. And we did this demographic profile with 3 goals in mind. First, to discern which minority and language populations exist in our service areas, to understand the limited English proficient individuals, and those are those individuals who read, write, and speak English less than well, and understand where those populations exist. And finally, just to ensure that our planning and our services work to serve our communities and our populations equitably. So then we start taking a look at some of those maps. So we started off looking at the minority percentage and population existing throughout the region. We see that it's pretty much throughout the entire region, and notably, we noticed that 8 of our communities have census tracts that have 25 to 50% of their populations that are minority. We also noticed that there's more of a heavy concentration in the urban communities, being the Waterbury, the Bristol, Ansonia, and Derby. We took a look at language, the languages that exist in the region, and again, looked at the population 5 years and older, specifically looking at those who spoke English less than well. That's the indicator for limited English proficiency. And you'll notice some of those similarities. So you're looking at those urban communities, you're seeing that they're going to have the higher percentages of limited English proficient individuals. So then this is just a closer look again at those 4 Valley Transit District communities, seeing that those census tracts in Ansonia and Derby, even some located in Shelton, have that 25 to 50% of minority population. So to get a closer look at the languages, and we're able to understand that there exists a significant Spanish-speaking population within the region, and subsequently a limited English Spanish-speaking population that exists. Excuse me. So looking a little bit closer, again, we see that there's that existing Spanish-speaking population, and note that, and in Sonia, you're really seeing that 8 to 12% in the census tract located here. If you can see, you'll probably see closer on the screen because I'm sharing my screen. Oh, good one. I think I skipped that, so you can take a look. You see, again, noting that in those urban centers, right? So we're seeing the heavy concentration located in some of those census tracts in Waterbury, heavy concentration in the census tracts located in Bristol. Here it is, we did note that we also see in Oxford and Thomaston that we have these census tracts with 8 to 12% of the population who are limited Spanish speaking, limited proficient, and Spanish speaking. So amongst the demographics that we looked at for Title VI, we also look at other transportation equity demographics. So we took a look at vehicle access. We also took a look at transit commuters. So here we like to note that you see, again, same communities, those urban centers, those we look at Waterbury, who is our urban center, and note that it is also a transportation hub. So you're seeing a lot of people without vehicle access, and you're seeing a lot of activity, you're seeing a lot of concentration of those populations that use public transit, noting that some of those concentrations are located along those communities that have fixed bus routes. Again, closer look at just those Valley Transit District communities, noting where there's lack of vehicle access, noting the fixed bus routes, and seeing where we're having a concentration of public transit users. So then we looked at poverty, and that's, household incomes and those who have below the federal poverty line. So we're seeing a concentration in those two, a couple of census tracts, noting that there are a few in Ansonia and Derby that have 20 to 40% of the population living below the federal poverty line. And the key takeaways from looking at this demographic information, we were able to determine that there exists this minority population that includes Spanish, limited English proficient individuals concentrated in the more urbanized areas of Derby and Ansonia, and that are more likely to be transit dependent and live below median household incomes. Similar to the region, noted and key takeaways that in these urbanized areas, Bristol, Waterbury, similar to Ansonia and Derby, that there exists a minority population, includes Spanish, limited English proficient individuals, and are likely to be transit dependent and have those pockets or those concentrated pockets that live below median household incomes. So the next part of the update that we took a look at is our public participation plan. Really, we determined that we want to use a multi-method approach to outreach and involvement that includes working with community leaders and community-based organizations. Some of the things we thought about is meeting locations, making sure that our meeting locations are accessible, ADA compliant, looking at various locations, hosting meetings at various times. We want to attend outreach events and look at translating our services. And with 2020, we had to think about how we did things, how we interacted with the public. So we modernized our technology capabilities for virtual engagement opportunities. And NVCOG also maintains a public outreach policy that provides a framework for how we're interacting with the public. So the next update is to our language assistance plan. So the language assistance plan outlines reasonable steps that we take to make sure there's meaningful access to limited English proficient individuals. And again, those are individuals who read, write, and speak English less than well. To determine which language assistance is appropriate, we do this based on an assessment of 4 factors. So factor 1 looks at the number and portion of limited English proficient persons in the transit service area. So again, we looked earlier at that demographic information. And so we found there is a sizable Spanish speaking limited English proficient population that meets the safe harbor threshold. Safe harbor stipulates that a grantee provides written translation of vital documents if the LEP group constitutes 5% or 1,000 persons of the total population. We also noted that looking on a regional scale, not necessarily municipal level, we found that other Indo-European was a language group that did meet the 1,000-person thresholds, but there's no language-specific data available to see, who in that other Indo-European group is meeting that threshold. So we took the additive measure to reach out to service populations, service agencies and organizations, and we're told and seeing the same thing, that Spanish was the most significant language that they were encountering. Factor 2 is the frequency of limited English proficient populations contact with the transit services. So we have seen for both organizations that there was an infrequent contact with both NVCOG and Valley Transit District. Factor 3 is the importance of transit services for the limited English proficient population. So the transportation planning and investments decisions that are carried out by NVCOG definitely impact all of our communities, and they may impact the mobility and access of limited English proficient individuals. The limited English proficient population that is dependent on transit, paratransit services that are provided by Valley Transit District are also very vital and important. Factor 4 is referring to the resources available for language assistance. And so we found that financial resources for language assistance is very limited. And one way that we control those costs is that both organizations maintain a staff member who is Spanish speaking and can assist in the translation of documents or calls that we receive. We also maintain relationships with partner organizations. So again, talking about those service organizations, those community-based organizations, and they're able to assist us with ad hoc translations. Overall, so these are some of the outcomes that came out of the language assistance plan. Really, we determined again that we would like to use a multi-method approach. That includes mostly the important things is that we'll continue to review and look at this language data as it's made available to us to make sure that we have the best picture of what our populations look like. We will continue to provide written and verbal translation services. We will keep all of our vital documents translated into Spanish, and that we will notify the public of language assistance that is available. And that what that looks like is that on our flyers, our notices, our social media things that go out, we'll make sure to include that language assistance is available. So this is the schedule of the plan for completion for our Title VI update. Yesterday, or May 11th, we began a public comment period. So this draft can be found on both the Naugatuck+Valley Council of Governments website and the Valley Transit District website. We do currently have a public comment period open, so you can send all of your comments to me. My contact information will be located at the end of the presentation. On the 25th, which was yesterday, we held our first public meeting, and that was at Waterbury City Hall. Today, we're having our second public meeting here at the Valley Transit District headquarters. June 10th, we will have the NVCOG board meeting and hope to have our updates approved pending the comments that we receive from the public. The 27th will be our final submission to FTA, and in late autumn, we hope to have a decision from FTA on the acceptance of those updates. Again, my name is Desiree Blanchard. I'm the Communications and Community Engagement Manager at NVCOG. My contact information is listed here. If there are any comments, questions, concerns, or comments specifically on the updates to the plan, you can give me a call or direct them to my email that's listed here. And I'm definitely happy to take any questions. If you're attending virtually, you can unmute yourselves or you can use the hand raise function and I can answer any questions. Oh, you can also use the chat function if you're unable to mute or say anything. Okay, well, I will stick around. If anyone decides they want to ask a question, I'll be here to answer them. Okay, so we're gonna wait one more minute, and if anyone has any questions, again, here to answer them. Other than that, we're gonna log off. A recording of this presentation will be available on the NBCOG YouTube page as well. All right, thank you guys for joining the presentation.